Hello there, duelists. I'm here once again with another deck profile. Today I've got another inherited deck from a friend who stopped playing the game. He was a duelist of two halves. The first is embodied by the Cyber Dragons, a profile that is on my channel that I've done previously, where you're attacking with huge monsters and just beat face for game. The other half was considerably more sinister, and that involved traps. Traps everywhere. The worse trap, the better. And as you can see with Traptrix on the playmat, these guys embody that fully. I've had to add quite a few of the more modern releases to the deck to kind of bring them up to speed, but they still fully revel in shutting down the opponent, hopefully reducing them to tears. So let's be brave and take a look into the trap hole of this deck. Okay, so first up let's dig into the undergrowth that is the monsters. So we've got 3 Traptrix Myrmeleo. So the general principle of the Traptrix monsters is they've got kind of like +1s for their normal summon and then kind of like toolboxy type effects for their special summon effects. Myrmeleo, when it's normal summon, searches you a trap hole card, and when it's special summon it can pop a back row. So the general principle is you get +1s off your normal summon, and then that advantage gain means that when you're trading 1-for-1s, which is kind of like your trap holes, you are still up on advantage on your opponent and you kind of slowly grind them out of the game. So from there, running 3 of the older, another three of the older Traptrix monsters in Traptrix Dionaea. So when this is normal summon, you can special summon a Traptrix monster from the graveyard, and when it's special summoned, you can set a trap hole from your graveyard, but it's banished during the end phase of your next turn. So again, a really still very solid card. Then we're running some of the newer stuff. So running 3 Traptrix Mantis. So when this is normal summon, you can add a Traptrix monster from your deck to your hand. So you can see all 3 of those have kind of got a very standard kind of like +1 effect on normal summon. Mantis's special summon effect is a bit unusual. You can bounce a set card from your field to your hand and then reset a card from your hands to the field. So you can kind of dodge some spell and trap removal in a pinch. I don't think that comes up that often. I think the main thing with Mantis is that it's a really easy effect to get off in combination with some of your extra deck cards, makes it really useful, and a utility to get, just to activate a Traptrix monster effect is useful. From there, I kind of was searching around for another Traptrix monster just because I wanted to up the count from 9 to 10, which may be too many, but I've gone with Traptrix Genlisea. So this can set 2 hole cards by tributing itself, 1 from your graveyard and 1 from your deck. It's okay. I think it could definitely be swapped out for another Traptrix monster should you wish, or if you want to just go with 9 you could also do that. But I think it's not a bad addition. All of the Traptrix monsters are also unaffected by the effects of whole normal cards, which I think used to be fairly relevant. The extra deck Traptrix monsters are actually unaffected by trap cards in total, which is actually a lot better. From there, moving on to our sub-engines, so running 3 Parallel Exceed. Parallel Exceed is an absolutely amazing card, and I think that decks that can utilise rank 1s really make use of Parallel Exceed just because it's so easy to get on board. But basically this allows you to go into a rank 4, so you make your link 1 play and then you make a rank 4 play. From there, running a couple of artifacts. I'm running Artifact Scythe. So I'm not a huge fan of Floodgates, but you've really got to slow down the deck to your speed. You really don't want your opponent blowing off. And then 1 Artifact Moralltach, because a lot of our monsters don't have huge attacks, so you kind of need stuff to protect it. And then I'm running 2 Ash Blossoms, which could really be anything, but I think it's the most versatile and useful hand trap. Now, unusually, we've got a single spell card. We're flipping reversing it. Normally it's the trap section that's really small. So we're playing double or nothing. Our single spell card that is searchable and is for our Utopia OTK. It's fine. I mean, again, you kind of need to play it. It's a bit sad that you do need to play this, and it's horrible to draw, which I seem to do all of the time. Okay, so we're still foraging around into the trap section, which is kind of like the main event here. So we've got 3 Infinite Impermanence, and again, this card's a little bit pricey, still even a little bit pricey after, what, 2 reprints? But it's basically a hand trap that is also a trap card, which is obviously super useful because of your extra deck monsters plussing off trap cards. Again, I think you could cut it and move it to an effect veiler. That would reduce the cost of this deck profile considerably. But I think in this deck, Infinite Impermanence is definitely the way to go if you have the resources to get to it. From there, we're running 3 Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine. So this is actually a really, really good card because you can activate it on turn 1, which just extends your board into another disruption. It's just a really solid card, and I wouldn't play Traptrix in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh without it. From there, we're running our 3 Searcher, which is Traptrix. So this is banish a normal trap card and then set another one. And you can activate it that turn, but you can only activate 1 trap card for the rest of your turn. So you have got to be a bit careful when you're using this. You know, either you're safe in the knowledge that you only need that 1 trap card, or you've done picking apart your opponent's turn, and then you can go into this. From there, we're playing the 3 Artifact Sanctum to go along with our 2 artifacts. Obviously, general popping and locking the opponent out of the extra deck is still super useful. And it's also got the pop effect as well, which actually comes up more than I'd expected. From there, we're running one of the newest trap holes, Gravedigger's trap hole. So this is when your opponent activates an effect in the hand or in the graveyard, you can negate it and then inflict 2,000 damage to your opponent. I mean, again, the 2,000 damage doesn't really matter at all, but it's that versatility. It's kind of like a trap version of, Call by the Grave or something like that. And you'd notice that I haven't actually run Call by the Grave in this deck, which I normally do, really. From there, running one of the older trap holes, so we're running Traptrix Trap Hole Knightmare, which again is just for a special summon monster, negate its effect. It has to be the turn that it activates, that's summoned, you have to negate its effect, which is a little bit sad, but most of the time they are going to be activating the special summon monster to affect that turn, and it also destroys, which is really good, so it gets it off board. From there, we're running 2 Floodgate trap holes, and again, this guy is probably the easiest trap hole to activate, which is useful for protecting your monsters. Sets a monster face down, its battle position can't be changed, so it's really just a generic, easy one to do. I'd had thought about bottomless trap hole, but I think it's just a little bit too awkward to activate. From there, I'm running 1 space-time trap hole, or sorry, time-space trap hole, which is summons from the extra deck, or from the hand actually, I keep on forgetting that. You shuffle that monster into the deck and then you lose 1,000 life points for each monster. So I think it was kind of put in for like pendulum monsters, but it tends to be just the extra deck that it comes up. Again, I think you could tech in whatever you wanted to. Looks really cool though. From there, we've got a few kind of like techies, so I'm going 2 Lost Wind. I'd quite like to bump it up to 3 really. So Lost Wind's obviously, you can reset it when your opponent special summons from the extra deck, and it negates and halves the attack of a monster, and the halving of the attack actually is quite useful because a lot of your monsters are quite small. And from there, running the 1 Imperial Order, which doesn't actually gel quite as nicely as I'd hoped, just because it's a continuous trap, and these guys are all about the normal trap, but locking your opponent out of spell cards is unbelievably good. I think what I would say is it does put you on a bit of a clock, and as I've stated, the monsters are quite small, so you've got to be a little bit careful with how you use it, but generally it's so powerful that you can't not take the opportunity to lock your opponent out of spell cards. Okay, so let's get caught in the web of the extra deck. So I'm running 1 Traptrix Rafflesia. So as I said before, the extra deck Traptrix monsters are unaffected by trap cards in general, which is quite useful. This guy, other Traptrix monsters can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, which is actually comes up quite often. I think people just generally don't remember that effect, mostly because its other effect was so prevalent, and it has become more prevalent since Gravedigger's Trap Hole. So you can detach to activate a trap hole card from your deck by sending it to the graveyard, which is really good. So from there, we're running 1 Traptrix Allomerus. So Allomerus is a detached 2 to special summon from the graveyard, a plant or an insect, or its other effect, which doesn't come up very often really, is if your opponent's monster leaves the field, you can detach 1, target that monster and special summon it back to your side of the field. Again, I think the main one is that first or second effect, I can't really remember which order it is on the card, where you're just special summoning to get the effects of the Traptrix monster when they're special summoned. From there, we're in some toolboxy, so we're running 1 Tornado Dragon, which is quite good for, you know, like Traptrix in hand and stuff. Sorry, not traps, artifacts in hand, and also just for spell and trap destruction. Evilswarm Exciton Knight, which I think you could argue should be an Abyss Dweller, depends. If you're using the Exciton Knight, you're in a bad place because you need to equalise the board state and you want to be up on card advantage. And then 1 Time Thief Redoer. With Brigandine, this becomes a spin, which protects you know, your board, and also just, you know, hopefully kind of trying to pinch spells so you can get extra pluses off his draw effect as well. And then finally, we've got number 39 Utopia and number 39 Utopia double for that kind of 10,000 swing in. Hopefully your opponent's monster puts a monster on board that's, you know, less than 2,000 attack and you can just swing in for gain. That's the XYZ, so the rest of it is Link monsters. So we're running 3 Traptrix Sera, which I would argue is the best card in this deck. So Sera is unaffected again. If a normal trap card is activated while it's on board, you can special summon a Traptrix monster from your deck, and when a Traptrix monster activates its effect, you can set a trap hole card from your deck. The thing is that those effects are, it's not once per turn, it's once per turn each, if you get what I mean. So you can special summon from the deck, then activate the Traptrix monster that you've summoned, and then get the additional trap hole card set. It's just an engine accrue, and I think that this deck wouldn't be nearly as good without this card. It's a definite 3-off. You run through them really quickly. So from there, I'm running 1 Link Spider, which I think you could argue you could cut. I think it's mostly just for those hands where you've got Brigandine, Shade Brigandine, and Parallel Exceed, because Traptrix Sera is a non-link Traptrix monster, so you can use your XYZs for it, although it is a bit of an investment if you're not using Parallel Exceed. And then from there I've got a couple of toolbox cards, so I'm running 1 Knightmare Cerberus and 1 Knightmare Phoenix. Sera points down, so your discard normally gets you a draw, which can be good if you're discarding like your double or nothing or something like that, something useless. And again, it's good utility. And then I'm running 1 Artifact Dagda. Yeah, nailed it the first time. Flipping, shouldn't have doubted myself. So this guy's a bit weird and he doesn't really come up that often, but if another effect is activated, then you can set an artifact and then destroy that artifact during your opponent's next end phase, which, I don't know, it doesn't come up that often. And then if it's destroyed in your opponent's turn, you can special summon an artifact in your graveyard, from your graveyard in defense position, which again is pretty niche. He's okay, but I wouldn't say he's necessary. And then finally, to round it up, our kind of game ender in Boroslaur Dragon. Again, I think you need to be a little bit careful with when you go to this, and I think Utopia Double's probably the easier route. You could probably run either or, but Boroslaur Dragon's just such a generically good card that, you know, it's why not run it. So I wouldn't really consider myself, you know, a control deck kind of guy, but I really like the way that Traptrix play. They're resilient to most hand traps, although you do have to watch out for that Ghost Ogre because that'll clear your board, then you won't be able to do anything. But they're really good at just reducing the game state to simple, you know, to simple card advantage just by trading off 1 card for one of your opponent's cards, which they'll almost always win when they get into that sort of state. I'm going to give them a 3 out of 5 for relevance. It's easily a 4 or more going first, but on the draw they're not nearly as potent as, you know, kind of trap decks tend to be. They really struggle to push through that sort of like setup board. For fun factor, it's tricky as all the games kind of have the same link play. You know, it's not exactly complicated, normal summon link off. But from there it's quite varied, you know, and the fact that you can toolbox so much out of the deck, you know, makes it very interesting, and kind of the skill is in knowing your opponent's deck, not necessarily, you know, all the combos that your deck can do. So I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5 as well. The hands with all traps or all monsters are a bit rubbish to play, but in general it's pretty consistent. So cost-wise, most of the deck is quite inexpensive. However, there's specific parts that are going to cost you a pretty penny. I've got this current deck about $350 as an estimate from TCG Player, but about $150 of it is quite easily replaceable, you know, from the imperms, which could be Effect Veiler, to Ash Blossoms, you know, which could be DD Crow or something like that, to, you know, your Borrelsword Dragon, which you could cut entirely for something, you know, for just a Boroslaur Dragon, for example. You know, if you're on a budget at least. All that said, Traptrix are a cool control deck. Don't let these little plant insect girls fool you, otherwise your life points will be eaten alive. So, see you next time, and thanks for watching.